My sister made my life hell, then got pregnant by my husband. Now she wants my help after our parents disowned her and left me their $2 million inheritance. My younger sister Olivia has always harbored a deep-seated resentment towards me. If you think it stemmed from jealousy, you'd be wrong. She was the favored child, not me. There was no reason for her to be envious. To give you some context, our mother always indulged Olivia. She was the golden child of our family. Mom cooked her meals, did her laundry, and even asked me to help her with her schoolwork. I was expected to assist her simply because we were family, but I never received the same consideration. I accepted this as I was quite independent. Perhaps it was partly my fault for always meeting her needs without expecting anything in return. She never helped me when I needed it and only approached me when she wanted something. While I was a quiet, introverted kid who enjoyed studying and keeping to myself, Olivia was loud and rough, just like our dad. I also tend to be straightforward and honest, never sugarcoating things. I believe my mother may have developed a negative perception of me because of my straightforwardness. This favoritism made Olivia the family's darling, and I didn't mind it while we were growing up. However, problems began when she started bullying and mocking me for being different from her. She would tease me about my height and the fact that I wore glasses. She would sneak into my room, read my diary, and then complain to my mom about what I had written. When I yelled at her and complained to our parents about her invading my privacy, they would laugh it off, saying it wasn't a big deal. She did more awful things like nearly breaking my glasses and putting nasty things in my food. She even once put little stones in my cereal, but luckily I found them before they could damage my teeth. When I told my mom, she dismissed it saying, "This is how sisters bond." Whenever we fought, Olivia would zero in on my insecurities to insult me. We went to the same school, so she knew I was being bullied by a few kids. Instead of supporting me, she sided with the bullies, calling me names like ugly loser or hairy monkey and encouraging them to physically harm me, saying I was just a big failure. Another time, during a fight over something trivial that I can't even remember, she told me to kill myself. While I could easily brush off most insults, that one really hurt because I was struggling with my mental health at the time. I'm doing better now, but it was devastating to hear that my own sister wanted me dead. Since Dad was often at work and Mom didn't seem to care much, she even scolded me once, claiming it was my fault for irritating Olivia. Things progressively worsened during high school. There was a shocking incident when Olivia attempted to set my hair on fire, and unbelievably, our mother defended her, claiming she was merely playing. Seriously, who behaves like that? Thankfully, my dad eventually sided with me and pointed out the gravity of the situation. He even threatened to call the police on Olivia. This moment was a real eye-opener for my sister, as she had never faced any consequences for her actions before. She was genuinely stunned, and my dad made it clear that enough was enough and that Olivia needed to start respecting her older sister. Later, Dad came into my room to talk. I never expected his support because he always told Olivia how similar they were, which was true. Dad admitted that he had waited for years, hoping Olivia would mature, but he was slowly realizing that she was becoming a big bully. Hearing this from my dad was incredibly validating, and I almost broke down in tears. I confessed everything Olivia had done to me over the years, and even mentioned the bullying at school. My dad was shocked at how much I had endured. The next day, he spoke to the principal to ensure the bullies were warned about severe consequences if they continued. Later that evening, Dad enrolled me in MMA at our local gym, telling me I needed to toughen up and stand up to bullies in my life. I admit that a nerdy girl like me trying to learn to fight might have seemed laughable, but I was very focused. I managed my time well to balance my studies and daily workouts, and the MMA classes completely changed my life and physique. One day, Olivia was up to her antics again. She stole my pocket money, which we received for helping with chores. I had been saving it for a while. Olivia sneaked into my room and took it. I caught her just as she was about to cycle off with her friends. I demanded she return my money, but Olivia mocked me, saying all I could do was run to Daddy for help. I don't know what came over me, but I punched her in the face. She was stunned, fell backward, and I retrieved my money from her pocket before pushing her back down. Olivia started crying loudly, which was quite comical. However, my mother rushed out to help her and find out what happened. When she learned I had fought Olivia, she was surprised and reprimanded me, saying I should be a better role model for Olivia, who seemed to enjoy seeing me scolded. My mother also complained to my dad about my behavior, saying I needed to be controlled. My dad grimly asked both of us to explain ourselves. I told him how Olivia had stolen the money I had worked hard for and saved, while Olivia tried to justify it by saying she needed the money for a date and that as her sister, I should help her. However, Dad told Olivia she was lucky I only punched her for stealing, because anyone else would have called the police. He continued to tell Olivia that she had no right to take others' things without their consent. Olivia didn't like that and threw a tantrum, likely hoping our mother would side with her, but Dad remained firm. When Olivia realized she wasn't going to be punished for being hit, she screamed how much she hated me and ran back to her room, locking herself in. Following that incident, Olivia began to distance herself from me. She had finally understood that she couldn't bully me anymore, and that even Dad had stopped supporting her antics. For the first time in a long while, I felt like we were equals. Though she could no longer physically harm me, she resorted to verbal insults when our parents weren't around. Her behavior worsened with age, becoming angrier and more short-tempered each year. When I approached her with a question, she would ignore me and walk away, muttering insults like nerd or loser under her breath. If she needed to communicate something, she would relay it through our mother instead of speaking to me directly. When I questioned her about why Olivia couldn't just talk to me, she would urge me to be more understanding. I couldn't tell if it was just puberty or genuine hatred. Over time, dealing with her comments became unbearable, and I longed to move out and get away from her. I repeatedly asked my mother to mediate a sit-down conversation for us to resolve our issues, but she always refused, saying she didn't want to get involved. When I asked her opinion on why Olivia treated me this way, she would brush off the question. Eventually, I left for my dream university, having earned a scholarship as a top student. My dad threw a party for me, and even my mom seemed proud. However, Olivia remained aloof and distant, barely acknowledging my achievements. The day I left for university was a mix of excitement for the future and relief to escape the toxic home environment. The first few months at university were liberating. I made new friends, enjoyed my classes, and started to build a life separate from the oppressive atmosphere of my childhood. The constant fear of Olivia's verbal attacks lifted, giving me a newfound sense of peace. During my second year, I met my husband Aaron at a frat party through a friend, and we immediately clicked. Coming from a religious background, having kids outside of marriage was frowned upon. However, when we discovered I was pregnant in our final year, we decided to marry right after graduation. Our wedding was a small but joyful ceremony. Our parents were happy for us, and we enjoyed the celebration. At that moment, I believed Aaron was the love of my life. I had always envisioned a monogamous relationship, one man to come home to and share my life with. Despite other men showing interest over the years, I never pursued anything because I was genuinely content in my marriage. Aaron was my dream guy, and I never wanted to hurt him. However, I later uncovered 2 incidents of infidelity in our marriage. One was an intermittent affair with his married coworker that spanned several years, and the other was a brief fling with an ex-girlfriend during a visit to his family. Some might think I was naive, and looking back, I can't completely disagree. Each time, we separated for a while. I chose to forgive my husband. I didn't want to raise our child in a broken home, and believed we could overcome these obstacles. The affair with his coworker happened when we were young, and I attributed it to youthful mistakes and poor judgment. For a period, things seemed to get better, although I could never fully trust him again. I did my best to set aside my doubts, knowing that if I chose to forgive, I had to genuinely work toward a fresh start. It's been 4 years since his second betrayal, and I felt confident in my decision to give him another chance. Aaron seemed to have changed, and we were genuinely happy planning our family's future. However, 3 months ago, my world was shattered once more when he revealed that he had been having a long-term affair and suggested that our son might not be mine. His words struck me like a ton of bricks, a mix of shock, betrayal, and disbelief overwhelmed me. I struggled to comprehend the enormity of his confession. In a daze, I managed to ask why he had kept such a significant secret and how he could have done something so devastating. His reaction was cold and indifferent, as if he were detached from the pain he caused. His vague responses left me with more questions than answers. It was a surreal and painful moment, confronting the shattered trust and uncertainty about my own family. I continued to press Aaron for the truth because I felt I deserved to know the father of the child I had been raising since birth. Ultimately, he admitted it was Olivia. My eyes widened in shock as I asked Aaron what he meant. He explained that he and Olivia had become friends when I introduced him to my family, and he stayed with us from Thanksgiving until New Year's. Olivia, usually cold to me, was warm and polite towards him, which made me glad because I didn't want Aaron to feel unwelcome. Aaron wanted to be accepted into my family, so he spent significant time with my mom whenever possible. He noticed the rift between Olivia and me and questioned me about it. I opened up about our strained relationship and explained that we might never repair it due to her unresolved feelings. Aaron understood but started including Olivia in our outings, hoping it would help us bond. Whenever we planned to watch a movie, he invited Olivia, and we watched whatever she chose. During this time, Olivia and I exchanged a few words, which was an improvement compared to her usual silent treatment. I remember Aaron and Olivia hanging out and playing video games together, but I never thought much of it. Aaron told me that one day Olivia opened up to him about her struggles in a recent breakup. Feeling vulnerable, she struck up a friendship with him. He mentioned that she would harmlessly flirt with him when I wasn't around, and eventually, things escalated beyond his control. The vision of my husband and sister sleeping together made me feel sick. Aaron confessed that he felt guilty afterward and left her, which matched his abrupt decision to go home instead of spending New Year's with me. Although I tried to convince him to stay, he was adamant about leaving. When we met back at college after the holidays, he was his usual cheerful self, so I didn't question anything. 2 weeks later, we found out I was pregnant. Aaron admitted he didn't know if the child was his or someone else's, and with no way to prove it, he chose to stay with me, knowing I was the more dependable partner. This was why we got married. My world felt like it was crashing down. The son I loved might not even be mine. I asked Aaron if he had been sleeping with Olivia recently, and he slowly nodded. He revealed that they had always stayed in touch because their chemistry was undeniable. They would sneak off to hotels, lying to me about working overtime. He admitted that half of his business trips were actually romantic getaways with her. I asked why he married me if he wanted my sister, and Aaron said he didn't want to be the one to break off the marriage. He saw me as a wonderful mother to our son and decided to stay. In his words, he made a mistake and didn't know when to stop. I told Aaron I was glad he told me the truth, but that I was going to pack up and leave. He started crying, asking for forgiveness, and expected me to yell at him. Instead, I calmly packed my clothes. Aaron insisted that if I loved him, I should fight for him and that mistakes happen in every marriage. When he realized I wasn't going to do anything, he changed tactics, saying our son would be affected by a divorce and that children shouldn't be raised in broken homes. I reminded him that I might not even be the father, which made him cry more and accuse me of being cruel. It seemed like he believed nothing could make me want to leave the marriage. Perhaps it was partly my fault for letting things slide in the past. While I did love him, it felt more like it stemmed from thinking we had a son together and had been together since college. Aaron kept insisting it wasn't too late to fix things, but I struggled to believe him and had no patience left. Trust was a major issue, and his words felt hollow. Even if I forgave him, I could never forget he slept with my sister. I've always believed in forgiving mistakes because we're all flawed, but this was beyond acceptable limits. I left him crying on the doorstep and checked into a hotel. The next day, I went straight to my parents and revealed everything about my husband's affair with Olivia, explaining how they had been secretly sleeping together for years. The shock on their faces was undeniable. True to her nature, my mother initially tried to defend Olivia, insisting that her girl could never do such a thing to her own sister. Determined to expose the truth, I asked my parents to remain silent and let me call Olivia in front of them. I instructed them to stay quiet so I could catch Olivia off guard, making her believe it was a private conversation. When Olivia answered the phone, I confronted her about the affair. At first, she vehemently denied it, refusing to accept any responsibility. However, when I told her that Aaron had admitted to everything, she started blaming him, calling him characterless. She claimed it wasn't her fault if men were attracted to her and that she was the prettier sister. I told her firmly that I would expose her to everyone. When Olivia mocked me, saying no one would believe me because she was the golden child, I scoffed at her arrogance and thanked her for confirming the truth, knowing our parents had heard everything. Olivia went quiet and then spluttered, trying to explain herself and salvage her image. My mother, still in shock, demanded an explanation from Olivia. She stuttered through a feeble attempt to justify her actions, blaming everyone else but herself and desperately trying to shift the blame onto Aaron. I could see my mother, who had once been protective of her favored daughter, now felt a mix of disappointment and anger. In that charged moment, I felt a strange sense of vindication. For years, I had endured Olivia's torment. Now, the truth was out, and the roles were reversed. It was Olivia who stood exposed, her actions laid bare for everyone to see. As Olivia's words faltered, my father, usually reserved in his expressions, couldn't contain his disappointment. He asked me to pass him the phone and began to speak to Olivia. "Olivia," my father began, his voice laden with disappointment, "what you've done isn't just a betrayal of your sister, but a betrayal of this family. You slept with your sister's husband and continued the affair even after they were married. Your actions have severe consequences and have irreversibly shattered the trust we had in you. I raised both of you to value family, loyalty, and decency. What you've shown today defies everything I've tried to teach you." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink into Olivia's conscience. "Your disregard for your sister's feelings and the lack of respect for her marriage are unacceptable. You've not only hurt her but also torn apart the bonds that hold our family together. Your mother and I are partly to blame for what you've become, but we will no longer tolerate this behavior. From today, you're cut off from the college funds I set up for you. You'll have to figure out how to pay your university fees on your own. I will also stop funding your lifestyle. Do you think it makes you more of a woman to sleep with married men? Let's see how you manage without my money." Throughout this, I maintained a composed demeanor. Although I initially wanted to scream at Olivia, watching my dad punish her was the ultimate vindication. I had exposed her true nature, and it was clear she had underestimated the consequences. My mother, despite Olivia's persistent protests, continued to justify her, but my father swiftly ended the call, shutting down Olivia's attempts to explain away her actions. Afterward, my mom approached me and hugged me. It had been a long time since we shared such a moment, but in that embrace, there was an unspoken understanding and support amid the family turmoil. She apologized for not believing me all this time. My 14-year-old self could never have imagined this moment, being vindicated and embraced by my mother. Following this, my dad helped me find a good lawyer to divorce Aaron. He and his lawyer tried to fight dirty, asking for alimony since I earned more than him, but his affair played heavily in my favor. We also conducted a paternity test, and it was confirmed that Olivia was indeed the mother of the child. The news was incredibly painful, even worse than discovering Aaron's infidelity. I was furious that the son I had loved and raised wasn't mine. However, I decided to stay strong. Aaron begged me to continue visiting my son, arguing he shouldn't be punished for the situation, but I couldn't bear to see him. He reminded me too much of Olivia, and I hated it. After my divorce was finalized, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me as I moved into my own place. It felt surreal to live alone since I had married so young and never really had the chance to experience independence. However, my naturally independent nature allowed me to quickly adapt to my new lifestyle, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. 2 weeks ago, my dad called to tell me he was considering changing his will because he didn't want to leave anything to Olivia. My dad is incredibly stubborn, and once he decided to cut Olivia out of his life, he stuck to it. Olivia tried reaching out to our parents and even showed up at their doorstep, begging for forgiveness, but they refused to let her in. Even my mother, who usually gave in to Olivia's tantrums, seemed done with her, though it must have been hardest for her. Olivia never texted me to apologize for what she had done, showing she didn't regret her actions. She was just upset about being cut off from her parents. Dad told me he planned to leave everything to me, ensuring Olivia wouldn't contest it later. He would leave Olivia only $1. My eyes widened in shock, as my dad had worked hard his entire life. Including his assets, retirement fund, and life insurance, the total came to nearly $2 million. The only condition in his will was that if my dad passed away before my mom, she would continue living in their house, even though ownership would transfer to me. I didn't mind this, as I wanted to care for my mom in her final days. Somehow Olivia found out about this and, unable to reach our parents, called me yesterday, trying to make amends. She explained how she was struggling with college and that after Aaron discovered the paternity of the child, he had been pestering her for child support. She said she had no money and was looking for part-time jobs but couldn't find anything. She begged me to talk to our family to start fresh since she really needed my help. I laughed in her face and told her I was done with her. I reminded her that she should have thought about the consequences before sleeping with my husband and getting pregnant. Olivia argued that I was being unfair and that Aaron was also to blame, to which I agreed. I reminded her that I had divorced him, making him her responsibility now. She shouldn't be calling me to complain about him or the child since these were the consequences of her own actions. Olivia started to raise her voice, but I interrupted, reminding her that she was no longer the favored child in the family, but the black sheep who had slept with her own sister's husband. At that moment, Olivia began to cry, telling me how everyone, including our grandparents and relatives, had turned against her. While this was true, it was no longer my concern. I told her we were done and that she should never call me again since I no longer consider her my sister. Since then, I've replayed the conversation in my mind. Despite my hatred for my sister, I had never heard her cry, at least not since we were kids. I won't lie, it did hurt me a bit to see her so helpless. So, I guess I'm here to ask if I should talk to our parents about her, or if I would be wrong if I don't. First updated post. Hi everyone, many of you have been asking why I am no longer in contact with my son Michael, and some have even called me cruel. I need to explain that I am not comfortable raising another woman's child. This isn't a stepson situation. I was led to believe Michael was my son, only to later discover he is actually my sister Olivia's son. Naturally, this revelation hurt deeply, and I cried over it for days. The main reason I don't want any contact with Michael is that I no longer want Aaron in my life. If I remain connected to his child, he will find a way to re-enter my life, and I need my space. You may think I'm cruel or selfish, but I can't see him ever again, at least not for a very long time. Second updated post. Most of you correctly guessed that it was my mother who informed Olivia about my dad changing his will, leading Olivia to call me as a last resort to fix things. I confronted her in front of my dad, and she broke down, saying I had punished Olivia enough and that she had learned her lesson. My dad firmly told my mother that if she believed what Olivia did was forgivable, then he could no longer stay married to her because he could never forgive such a betrayal. This threat silenced my mother. My dad made it clear that if she ever talked with Olivia again, and we found out, she could pack her bags and leave. As I mentioned, my dad is very stubborn. Hopefully, my mother will learn from her mistakes. Third updated post. It's been 6 months since my last update. My relationship with my parents has improved over the past few months. My dad and I go shopping every weekend, and he treats me more like a friend than a daughter. Although my mother misses Olivia, she has stayed away from her. The last I heard about Olivia was from my cousin, who said Olivia had been asking everyone for money and eventually had to drop out of college because she couldn't afford the fees. She and Aaron are living together, and she has a part-time job as a mechanic. Apparently, they are raising Michael together, which is a good thing, I guess. I never discuss Olivia with my parents, and they don't bring her up either. For everyone asking, I am doing quite well. I was promoted at my job 2 months ago, so my salary has significantly improved. I haven't been dating anyone, as I feel I still need time and space to heal. I've been going to therapy, so we'll see how that works out.